For saying it was a bombing before we knew it was a bombing, but of course it turns out to be a bombing. And Hillary Clinton seems very measured and toned down on the plane in her presentation.
Yeah, look, if I were advising Donald Trump, I would tell him it's always better to wait until you know exactly what's happened before you make a comment on it. Having said that, what he said a couple hours later, but really was basically saying the same thing. She said these were bombings in these 3 different places. I think if you're Trump, what you want to do is project strength, and he does that every time. I'm not sure voters are going to be terribly upset that Trump is getting out in front of this in seeming to project a willingness to be proactive and aggressive when it comes to terrorism. Yeah,
is there a sense that this is what the country wants as a fighter on this issue?
I mean, certainly the way we saw Donald Trump respond to incidents like San Bernardino last year. I mean, all throughout this campaign, voters are responding to the way that Donald Trump talks about terrorism, at least his voters. And the question to be seen in that poll as well, that's a large percentage of the country, but is it a majority? And that's, particularly if terrorism gets back on the front burner as we get closer in the last 51 days, this may be a referendum on which leader you'd like to, which style of leadership you want in the White House.
But aren't there independents and moderates who are also sick of people not saying what it is, even though you know what it is? Like using different words or being very cautious, almost to the point of political correctness cautious about this.
Euphemisms erode trust in the speaker who deploys them. I would say, by the way, we've seen a bunch of police shootings over the last year, and you've seen Democratic politicians jump up and draw broad and hard conclusions about American society based on those shootings with no knowledge at all of the facts. I haven't seen them criticized at all in the press. So Trump is being held to a different standard here. But he's the only person, this is the key in my view, the only person who's even suggesting maybe there is a root cause we can address. Minneapolis didn't have terror problems 30 years ago. There are now 25,000 Somali refugees there with their children, and now it does. Same with Portland, Maine, same with a lot of other places. So maybe there's a direct connection between a resettlement policy or immigration policy as well and our terror problems. It seems like a pretty obvious conclusion. Why is he the only one saying that?
The map didn't go as I planned with the different states, and yes, I know the difference between New Hampshire and Maine. Bottom line is the overall message was it's close, and some of these states are within 2 or 3 points. This whole thing could shift based on that one debate. If it goes 3 points one way, a lot of those electoral college votes, Zeke, change.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talk about things like October surprises, late-breaking developments that...
If you go by history, the polls are close, but history suggests that Arizona will head towards the Republican way. Jillian, but national security, to Steve's point, how much in these final days do you think that focus is going to be on this?
I think an incredible amount, as the weekend shows. They're really, the latest Fox poll, national, on this is that they're neck and neck when it comes to who to trust on terrorism. Donald Trump, I think, really took a risk last night. He shot from the hip. He didn't have all the information when he made those comments, and he went for it. And I think that he really connected with people emotionally. So history will judge him probably kindly for calling this a bomb, for calling out, alluding to the fact that it was radical Islamic terrorism. The risk for him becomes not so much in the days between now and November, but if he is elected president and he does make these kinds of leaps, how are the American people going to respond? Because eventually he's going to be wrong, and that's going to be very risky for him.
Panel, thank you. After the break, why next Sunday should be called Super Sunday.